Times change, but there's always one place the whole world thinks of for sunshine. For turning your face to the skies and feeling that gentle touch of warmth, where the sun says to you, "Lie down, my friend, and let me toast your bones till the tiredness disappears, and all the abuse of winter melts away." Live again, Florida.
We need the sunshine and palm trees of Florida. Florida, when you need it bad, we've got it good. When you need it bad, come to Florida. We need it bad.
It is 4:58 p.m. on Thursday, October 5th, 2017, and I am on my way to the ArcLight Hollywood in beautiful Hollywood, California, to catch a 7:15 p.m. screening of The Florida Project. I'm some jerk with a camera, and welcome to One Movie Later, where I compare and contrast my preconceptions and postconceptions of movies in theaters now. So as a great many of you already know, back in 2013, a certain little movie came out called Escape from Tomorrow. It was notoriously the first ever feature-length motion picture, released theatrically, to have been shot mostly on location guerrilla style at Disneyland and Disney World, and as such, it certainly piqued my interest. But as you know, if you watched my 3-part review of it, I found it a tad, what's the word? Awful. Yes. God-awful, even. Seriously, Escape from Tomorrow just sucks. The characters are paper-thin, the themes are all over the place, the plot goes back and forth between non-existent and way too far up its own asshole. But when it first premiered at Sundance, the critics didn't seem to mind any of that. They loved it because it existed. Seriously, on the movie poster, the blurb with the biggest font said, "It is not possible that this film exists." Bitch, I knew back in the 90s that film would eventually exist. I'm not kidding. I distinctly remember going to Disneyland as a teenager and thinking, wow, wouldn't it be cool to shoot a movie here? Just get a bunch of camcorders and shoot not just vacation footage, but a real, honest-to-God, scripted 3-act feature-length movie with characters and everything that just happened to take place at Disneyland. It'd be a challenge for sure, but with the right amount of effort, I knew someone would eventually pull it off. And in 2013, someone did. And it sucked. But the critics showered it with praise and it got a distribution deal anyway because apparently this rather simple, obvious idea I had as a teenager never occurred to the film critic intelligentsia. But the thing about a gimmick like that is you can only do something for the first time once. After that, the bloom will be off the rose and the novelty will wear off. And make no mistake, that movie depended on novelty. I mean, for God's sake, it even marketed itself like a carnival sideshow. Step right up, folks, and see the stupefying freak film. It shouldn't exist, and yet it does. Woo! I mean, if I wanted that, I'd just watch The Country Bears again. This movie literally has no right to exist. It shouldn't exist. It can't exist, and yet it does. Towards the end of my Escape from Tomorrow review, I encouraged more people to make movies like that, but better. I mean, they would have to be better just to get any sort of recognition now that it has in fact been proven possible for a film like that to exist. And for those reasons, I cannot fathom that any other indie film shot guerrilla style at the Disney parks could ever be as bad as Escape from Tomorrow and actually get theatrical distribution ever again. So to that end, please join me as I start a new sub-series of One Movie Later. Welcome one and all to the inaugural episode of Escape from Tomorrow done right, or at least less wrong.
But before I go into any of the details, I want to say just a word about the site of our Florida project.
The Florida Project is the most recent film from indie director and co-creator of Greg the Bunny of all things, Sean Baker. His previous film was Tangerine, a critically beloved gritty slice-of-life dramedy about transgender prostitutes working in the most marginalized corners of the city of Hollywood. And The Florida Project is another slice-of-life dramedy about the members of a marginalized community living in the shadow of a world-famous destination where dreams supposedly come true. This is a movie about the town of Kissimmee, Florida. Now, if you've ever vacationed in Disney World and didn't feel like paying for an on-property Disney hotel, chances are you've slept in Kissimmee. A bit of background. When Walt Disney originally built Disneyland in Anaheim, he really only had enough money to buy the land for the park, the parking lot, and the hotel. And within literally less than a year, right across from Walt's Magic Kingdom, on the other side of Harbor Boulevard, there were a slew of cheap, tacky motels and fast food joints where there had once been orange groves as far as the eye could see. 10 years later, when Walt started buying up land for his Florida project, oh, now I get it. He was determined not to make the same mistake twice.
The whole area encompasses 27,400 acres. That is 43 square miles, twice the size of the island of Manhattan.
But the thing is, that did not keep the tacky shit from being built. It just pushed it way farther away. All the way to a stretch of Highway 192 in Kissimmee. Now, I've stayed at the motels in Kissimmee several times because I'm a cheapskate, and as far as I'm concerned, as long as there's a bed and a bathroom and 4 walls and a ceiling and decent air conditioning, a room is a room is a room. So I've been up and down that stretch of Highway 192 several times, and it is the tackiest stretch of road you will ever see that does not also have legalized gambling. It's like all the buildings are in a contest to out-eyesore each other, all for the sake of soaking just a little more money out of tourists who are already too cheap to stay at a Disney hotel. But even in a place that looks so transparently fake, there are still real people who have to live and work there every day, and a lot of them are too dirt poor to even go to the big-ass theme park lording over them. The magic serfdom, if you will. So, yeah, it's about damn time they got their own movie. And this particular movie is about a precocious 6-year-old girl who lives in a tacky motel room with her young single mother. And when I say it's about time they got their own movie, I kinda mean that literally, because the little girl and her mother are both played by local non-actors. That is a really bold and risky move for any director to make. I hope it pays off. The one well-known actor in the movie playing the motel manager is Willem Dafoe, who oddly enough had a doppelganger in Escape from Tomorrow who also worked at a hotel. Weird. And apparently at least one scene was actually shot on location at Disney World guerrilla style, so it counts for this show! Ever since the Florida project premiered at the Cannes Film Festival this year, it has gotten rave reviews. It had like a 96 on Rotten Tomatoes last I checked, and it's even gotten some serious Oscar buzz. I mean, the company distributing it is A24, who also distributed Moonlight last year, which of course won Best Picture. Eventually. No matter what, I don't see any possible way this could be worse than Escape from Tomorrow. So, let's see if I agree with the critics this time.
Orlando, Orlando, I love you, Orlando.
Okay, introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Brianna.
And what do you do? What's your... Why are you here?
I'm here because you invited me.
Indeed I did, yes.
I'm Jared, also known as professional wrestler and analyst ROSENFELD.
Hi, I'm Ian. I work at Star Tours at Disneyland, and I think I was kicked and dragged screaming here in the back of a trunk. So, courtesy of me.
That's what I was hearing on the way here.
I hope you enjoyed the movie. I mean, I know when you were,
you
know, attached to the seat with, you know, with chicken wire and all that. That was...
But we fed him popcorn.
Yeah.
Clothespins might have been a tad excessive. But...
Indeed, yeah.
I'm Nick GANSSLE. Yeah.
And Luke Ski as Sir not appearing in this one movie later.
Couldn't resist. Just couldn't resist getting in there. You didn't even see the damn movie. He was kind enough to let us shoot at his place. I guess it's only fair.
Does that make him what, production designer?
Sure, why not? We just saw the Florida project, and that was a surprisingly harrowing film. Very, especially towards the end. It's one of those films where you're not entirely comfortable saying that you outright liked it, because the feelings you have... At least for people who don't usually watch indie films like most of us, honestly. The feelings you feel as you walk out of it are not exactly happiness, because this does not really have a happy ending. And we'll talk... The ending works. It's probably the thing that works most about the film. It's just... one with complicated emotions behind it. The biggest criticism I have towards this movie is it's too long, I think.
It is really long.
You could have easily cut half an hour from this movie and lost nothing of value, but...
An hour and 55 minutes.
It does kind of suffer from the Boyhood problem in that way, in that it feels like there's a lot of scenes that pass where nothing really gets accomplished and nothing actually happens, but there are, in fact, consequences for things that happen. Things actually do change throughout the course of the film for reasons, so it's better than Boyhood in that sense.
There's no narrative drive, there's no central conflict, so when you get to about an hour, 15 minutes in, you're a little bit mentally and emotionally just tired, because you're like,
yeah.
I don't have a framework by which to predict how much longer it will be. I don't have a framework to predict what else is going to happen or where it's going. So there's a little bit of a, with all of these kind of films, there's a little bit of a sense at a certain point of being lost in the woods, especially when you're seeing it in theaters and can't check, okay, runtime, how much is left at the bar at the bottom. This type of film is very hard to make well.
Yeah.
In that...
It's easy to make horribly.
Oh, yeah.
But
as we've seen in other examples. The challenge is every new scene has to re-entertain you because you're not still in the same kind of plot conflict. And for much of the film, I thought they successfully did that. Of the movies of this kind of slice-of-life genre that are less narratively driven, this is one of the best I've seen.
Yeah.
Cards on the table. I haven't seen that many like this. Not to contradict what you said at the beginning, Tony, but walking out of the theater, my instinct was, I fucking loved that.
Okay.
As a movie.
I absolutely understand the reservations, because I had those in the midpoint, but the ending was so satisfying to me that I was just like, yeah, this film is not perfect. It has, like you said, it could be trimmed down a bit, but holy shit, I fucking loved that.
Well, the ending was satisfying in the sense that it's such an emotional gut punch, and it does feel like the perfect ending for this particular movie. I think what I admired most about this film was the way that it made the unpalatable palatable. Most of the characters in this film, particularly the mom, would have just been grotesque stereotypes in anything else. Yeah. In absolutely anything else. And here, you actually kind of feel for them, and you're kind of surprised that you feel for them. Yeah. Because they're not objectively good people. I mean, the mom in particular is kind of objectively a complete horrible person. What makes it all work is the little girl. Yeah. Is the daughter. And not just the daughter as a character, but also just the way the film depicts childhood. It's only depicting the positive parts of childhood from the point of view of the children. You know, and it's realistic in how it depicts what's fun about childhood, in the sense that kids are just these basically crazy lunatics who just run around and are able to find the joy in anything and, you know, just say random things off the top of their heads and all that. And obviously some of us never outgrew that. But what it doesn't go into, though, and I think this was very intentional, was the dark side of childhood itself. I mean, kind of the comedic premise of South Park was that kids can be just as horrible to each other as anyone else. You know, kids can be, you know, nasty little assholes to each other, and that's absolutely true too, but the film does not depict any of that. Now, bad things objectively, from the point of view of adults, do happen to these kids, and to the adults around them, they're basically these agents of chaos that are just causing mischief and, you know, making everyone's life more difficult every passing day. But to the kids themselves, everything they do is joyous to them. It's how we all would have liked childhood to be. It's not even-handed because, you know, like I said, there's no sense of the kids experiencing any of the pain that is unique to, you know, what kids go through. But, you know, that half of it, the half that the film chooses to present, is a realistic portrayal of that half.
When I first saw the kids, I was like, oh god, they're brats. But sure enough, you know, throughout the movie, you really start to care for these kids, which, like, that usually is difficult for me to get into in movies. So, but even then, by the end, like, I was emotional.
The main three kids are, was it Moni?
It was Mooney.
Mooney.
Scooty?
Mooney, Scooty.
And Jancy.
It's like the names of the Muppet Babies.
Yes! Or Smurfs.
There's a lot of shots where the adults are talking, but the camera is on Mooney. The shot, like, ends at around here, and you just see her reacting to them talking. Yeah. This film is being made from a child's point of view. You know, it's not quite Peanuts, where you don't even see the adults or hear them say anything but wah, 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 but it almost may as well be in some of those scenes.
And even the adults that do speak are pretty childlike.
The secret of why the mom doesn't come off as just a monster is because you see her and her daughter together, and it seems like the only real joy she gets out of life is when she's just horsing around with her daughter and just being a kid again. And you kind of realize, oh, this is the same person, just at different ages. She was just like her daughter when she was young, and the daughter is going to grow up into her. And it's a vicious cycle that just never ends. At least that's what I took from it.
I mean, now that you've said it, yeah, I can't unsee that. In any other film, they wouldn't have those scenes of the mother and daughter just roughhousing and having fun.
That's very true.
And the scenes of them watching TV wouldn't be them as friends watching TV. It would be the mother neglectfully being like, shut up, watch TV. You don't get the sense that the mother doesn't want to deal with her daughter. You get the sense she is incapable of dealing with her daughter and is doing the best she can. I keep blanking on the daughter's name. What's the daughter's name? Mooney. No wonder I keep blanking on the... Okay. The mother also isn't a drug addict or an alcoholic as far as we know, which is rare when depicting white trash. Like, I mean, she smokes weed, she drinks beer, but she's not like high on any hard substances as far as we know.
Yeah, for a movie,
she's not constantly boozing in bed.
For a movie about a project in Florida, surprisingly little meth.
Yeah. Like, I can't remember any. There's times when this movie is kind of like Spring Breakers by way of Rugrats. I guess that's the best way to describe it.
I mean, it's totally probably the closest movie to Stand By Me since Stand By Me.
Yeah.
Because, like, on the surface, when people talk about, oh, this movie's a lot like Stand By Me, what they usually mean is it's a fun kid's adventure. But let's not forget, the whole plot of Stand By Me is you want to see a dead body.
Right.
He's a kid, our age, in the fucking woods, and he's dead. And we're gonna go look at him. The reason they're doing that is the main character's like, well, I never coped with the death of my older brother, so yeah, I'd like to see a dead body. And like the climax of the film is, hey, your older brother is gonna beat the shit out of us and leave us for dead unless you threaten to shoot him. Like, I feel like this film captures both the joys of walking along the railroad tracks singing Lollipop, Lollipop, and also, wow, that's a fucking dead kid over there in the woods.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this one's more organically blended because it's not quite so, this scene's really fun and then this scene's really dark. I feel like they organically shift between them.
I mean, the kids in this are not as old as the kids in Stand By Me, but in a way that makes it all the more tragic that these kids kind of have to almost come of age sooner and faster because
they are in a terrible situation.
Yeah, they don't know it yet. She doesn't have the perspective to realize how fucked she is.
Every scene, I was like, "Oh God, something horrible is going to happen."
Yeah, I got that a couple times. I've seen so many like action movies and exaggerated movies where you think it's going to go somewhere horrible. They actually pull you back and say like, "No, this is set in kind of a more reality," and so it's like they never go like fully shocking or anything. In a sense, that made me a little more depressed in seeing like, oh yeah, this is kind of like real life.
As broken as they may seem, it shows that there can be a little bit of happiness no matter how hard some people may try to bring you down.
For the two leads who had never acted before, one was an Instagram model and one was a kid they found in a Target. They were amazing.
Yeah.
I think that's what helped it because, like, it's what made the mom feel real.
This is a rare movie that is, like, has all the good qualities of a film school graduate movie and none of the bad stuff.
That's a good way of putting it. You notice how we're actually breaking down the techniques and the things used in this movie and the decisions because the movie was actually good? And you know that the director of Escape from Tomorrow intended just as many deep meanings in his movie, but we didn't give a shit because it didn't work at all.
I take slight issue with that statement. I think what you mean is, you notice how we're breaking things down because this was a movie.
Yes, exactly. This actually had themes to it. This is at least 100 times better than Escape from Tomorrow. I mean, this actually made me feel emotions besides boredom and confusion, so it's got that over Escape from Tomorrow right off the bat.
The whole point of Escape from Tomorrow on some level was to create a dreary, disturbing picture within Disney World. And so part of what they did was film it in black and white to create that tone. This is one of the most colorful films I've seen in a while.
Yeah, it's oversaturated.
Captured the dreariness of Orlando and Florida.
And, well, Kissimmee specifically.
Yeah, so much better.
And the colors were oversaturated digitally, so, you know, it feels even more kind of in your face and plastic and every color not found in nature.
It created this very palpable sense of, like, I don't want to go so far as to say doom, but of the dirt being kept just on the edges. Like, there's the childhood innocence, and then the evil that's just barely at bay.
I went into this film knowing nothing. I was thinking like being based off what I've heard, I thought this was like the era of Disney World opening and these people feeling the heat. And then small things kind of drop in place like, no,
there's a cell phone. This is modern day.
You have the hotel as this giant pink palace, and you have the giant orange, you have this giant shop with the wizard that is just popping out. It's like this magnificent, that is so amazing.
But these are all real places, apparently.
Oh yeah.
It's so real.
Even the motel they shot at is a real motel.
Yeah, apparently they were super cool about it.
And you have the giant rockets outside of a Futureland hotel, like right next door. It's like so perfect. As a movie viewer who's understanding like this is how a child saw everything, it's like you're looking at all the cool giant stuff. You're looking at all the giant picture. You're just here to play with friends. It's meant to pop out. It's meant to grab your attention, and because we're seeing this through the perspective of several people, whether it's a child or an adult. As a guy who works in Anaheim every single chance he gets, 5 days a week, I can tell you that this feels very much like the same thing. The magic is literally right next door, and being outside of that, it just feels so different.
So now you've got all this kitschy stuff that's trying to be the poor man's Disney World, and to kids there's really no difference. It also has this kind of isolating sense because it's so far away from the actual park. At least in Anaheim, you know, a lot of Anaheim, especially immediately surrounding Disneyland, has been really gentrified in the last few decades. And, you know, Disney started the Good Neighbor Hotel program, so, you know, all hotels that want, you know, trams to go straight to the hotel to pick you up have to be up to a certain standard. So, you know, that area of Anaheim, you know, Harbor Boulevard and all that, is not nearly as tacky as it used to be. But Florida, they have no incentive to do that. It's like they've got so many hotels on Disney property, Kissimmee can go to hell as far as Disney's concerned. They don't give a shit. Yeah, the Florida Project, really affecting movie, really well made, definitely had a vision behind it. A little too long, but that's kind of to be expected from these slice-of-life type movies. Whether or not I recommend it depends a lot on your tolerance for children. If you just can't stand children at all, you're probably not going to like this movie, because it is absolutely a movie about childhood. But if you love children, or at least tolerate them, I'd say give it a watch.
The other thing that recommending it to someone would kind of, for me, depend on their tolerance for kind of just the gritty, semi-depressing reality of, ghettoism. Because I know some people can't really watch that. It makes them too uncomfortable, or it makes them too sad. And then there are friends who I'd be like, you'll like this, just know in advance, none of the kids get hurt. They're all okay. Yeah. If you know that going in, then it's like, okay, no.
That is true, none of the kids get hurt.
My brother David wasn't with us, so I'm definitely recommending it to him.
Yeah. He lived in Orlando for several, helped me with the Epcot video.
Yeah, he hated living in Orlando.
We may as well just go into spoilers at this point, so, spoilers!
Through the eyes of a child, the world seemed magical.
Honestly, objectively, they're not even that sympathetic, because the mother absolutely creates her own horrible situation. Whenever anything bad happens to her, she responds to it just so viciously and terribly, and she, you know, cusses people out, and she, you know, throws tampons at windows and things like that.
She does make everything worse.
Yeah, she makes everything worse by just being completely indignant about everything. On the other hand, when you really look at it, well, you know, what does she have left but her pride? You know, it's kind of the only thing she's got.
Jancy's not living with her mom, she's living with her grandmother.
Because her mom was like 15 years old when she got pregnant, so, you know.
The first thing we see them do as a group is spit on people's cars.
Yeah, the kids kind of embody the Pollyanna, Mary Poppins, spoonful of sugar ethos in the sense that, you know, they're spitting on the cars just for the fuck of it. And then when the owner of the car gets angry and says, you know, you got to clean up my car, they're making a game out of cleaning up the car.
I think
you know, that's a spoonful of sugar right there. You find the fun and snap the job's a game.
I think my favorite thing about
and then the mom gets angry at them for having fun.
It starts with them spitting on the car. The woman gets mad, so they tell her off, and then she's like, runs to catch them. We're like, we better run. So running becomes a game.
Yeah.
And then when they're finally caught and have to go clean it up, cleaning up becomes a game.
Yeah.
To the point where they're like, hey girl, you want to help us? And she's like, yeah, I want to help. That looks like fun.
I love the fact that we are introduced to these kids, not only with them just spitting on the car, but also them really cursing.
When you see little kids cussing in real life, it's the most shocking thing you can think of.
The thing that always caught me off guard and made me laugh were the turns of phrases the little girl used.
Yeah.
That she clearly picked up from her mom.
Oh yeah.
So like, you get it, girl. Like, okay, so she's talking about an ice cream cone. Her mother was not when she used that phrase. But I guess, yes, technically, that is a correct way to use that phrase.
Sure, why not?
So the daughter understands these phrases and when they can functionally work.
Scooty and Mooney showing their new friend around the motel, and then all of a sudden you see, we're not supposed to go in this room, but let's go anyway. And then
That's a line from the movie.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's all of a sudden you just cut to Willem Dafoe. It's like black. It just,
the power shuts off. When he's on the way to the utility room, all the hey, what the fuck? You know, the power's out. What are you gonna do? Then he just flips the switch and he's walking back, and everyone's like, yay! We did it! All right.
I loved that on the way there we see all the people complaining,
Yeah.
but on the way back we only get him in a hero
Right,
shot
right.
where he's walking with the sun, like sunset behind him, and he's like waving like a politician, like thank you, thank you.
Like Caesar. I do want to talk about that scene early on where the couple thinks they're going to Disney World and instead they end up at this, you know, shitball motel. One theme that is prevalent through the entire film is how we tend to treat lower class people as nuisances. The woman is just absolutely, you know, livid that she's even in this shitbag. I want to leave! Why are we here?
The wife's on the brink of tears that they're not in Disney World.
Day-to-day reality for these people is just unbearable for this one woman.
It's not just the hotel itself, it's also the kids themselves she refers to as a nuisance, because they bring her luggage in and she's like, what are they doing? Why are they touching our shit? They want you to give them a tip for helping you bring in your stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, what tip? What? No, why? Why is this happening? She really does, in that moment, see them as, like you said, a complete nuisance and nothing more.
In order to kind of scrounge up extra rent money, Haley is trying to sell perfume at a high-end hotel. It's not an official Disney property hotel, from what I can tell. It's just kind of one of the more high-end hotels at the fringe of Disney World. They try to arrest her, but she runs away.
It's not even like, get out of our face. It's like, no, we want to punish you for this.
You can't even, you know, let these people try to make a living around here, because it's just... It's fucking irritating to, you know, the people who are on vacation.
They're not even that bothered by it.
No, not really.
Like, they're just like...
Some of them even, you know, say, yeah, sure, I'll take some perfume, why not?
Well, and there was even that one guy who, like, had his golf clubs and was like, nah, I don't need any perfume. And she's like, could you just give us a couple bucks then?
And he's like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay, sure.
And he buys some perfume.
Yeah, at that moment he's like, you know what, you're right. Okay, I can spare a few dollars for you. Here you go.
They showed so many shots of the helicopter.
People escaping.
I think it was, I thought about that. I was thinking class disparity. People escaping.
Yeah.
Because remember there's that one scene where they're all flipping off the helicopter.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know the logistic reason why there were so many helicopters, but there were a shitload of helicopters.
I assumed it was like an airstrip or something.
Probably, you know, when they were shooting in Kissimmee, they kept getting bothered by helicopters and it was screwing up the sound, so they just decided to make a running gag out of it. Maybe that's what happened.
There were a couple scenes where in the background you could just hear like planes or helicopters.
Yeah,
But it was for the whole scene. It wasn't like, oh no, a plane flew through our shot. It was like, no, this is the background. This is the room tone. I wonder if part of that was, okay, well this will cover up any inconsistency of room tone we have. So.
Well, I just thought it was a reference to the scene where Mooney is sent to kill Colonel Kurtz, and never mind. But
that's also valid.
should we talk about the pedophiles?
I was going to say we have not talked about the pedophiles.
These girls are just playing, you know, around the picnic tables, and this dirty old man basically comes up to them and starts asking questions, and Willem Dafoe notices this and basically starts, like, toying with the man and saying, you know,
I did love that.
Yeah, you wanted a soda? Oh, I'll take you to the soda machine here. Oh, you wanted that soda? Okay, he takes a sip, knocks it out of his hand, like, get the fuck out of here. That was love that.
And when he's trying to defend himself, he just like grabs him in a headlock, spins him around, takes his wallet, looks at his driver's license, reads the name, is like, ever come back here again, I'm calling the cops. Yeah. And then throws it at him.
Well, yeah, I love the escalation of the scene. It almost felt like Martin Scorsese directing it. It reminded me of that scene in The Wolf of Wall Street where he's trying to bribe the FBI agent, where it just gradually boxes him in until it's like, oh, okay, all cards on the table, there's no walking back from this.
And the whole time he keeps like looking back over his shoulder at the kids.
Yeah. And he goes, don't look over there. No, the sodas are over here.
Yeah, he sees them as agents of chaos. He sees them as these kind of nuisances in his own way, but these are
But he's still going to try to keep the pedophiles away.
He also sees himself as their protector.
This was still relatively early in the film, so it was the beginning of failing to keep the darkness at bay, where this was one of the first scenes where there's any real threat to the kids, where it's like, oh shit, is this film going to take a really dark turn? Just because we can find the joy in these mundane tasks doesn't mean the real world isn't still shitty and dangerous.
Exactly.
And it's just barely outside of our bubble.
Growing up in the late 90s and early 2000s where a kid like me at that age was told to, you gotta grow up, because as you can tell, this whole world is kind of fucking scary. There's things that are large scale, such as, you know, early 2000s, you know, with terrorist attacks and all that good stuff, compared to like some small like this.
Terrorist attacks and all that good stuff?
All those good examples, I think is what it meant.
Yeah.
All those fitting examples.
All those fitting examples. Can we redo that?
Yes, please. Take that sentence again.
So being told to grow up in the
If
early...
you see something, say something.
Exactly. Oh, God.
Hello, FBI.
Why do you have the FBI on speed dial?
I have my reasons.
Okay. There were a lot of great shots in this movie. I think my absolute favorite was the tree.
Oh god.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
I mean, that almost looked like something out of a horror film.
Yeah.
It looked like something on a big fish.
On the daughter's friend's birthday, their birthday present is that they're, you know, hitchhiking to a field where they can see the fireworks from afar. They're not hearing the fireworks show or anything, but they can, you know, see them up in the sky, and that's their version of a magical happy birthday, and it's just...
And the little girls, they still love it.
Yeah.
They really do.
And the little zebra cake with one candle in it, the little Debbie zebra cake.
Oh, yeah.
I remember eating those as a kid. Like, I remember not understanding that Hostess was inherently better than Little Debbie, because I'd never tried them side by side. And I saw someone eating one of those zebra cakes, and I was just like, that looks awesome, I want that. The fact that they're also eating the off-brand Hostess while living in off-brand Disney, something about that was... But again, it's also a part of my nostalgic childhood, so that was very emotional to me. There's that scene on the seesaw where they keep going up out of frame, back down in. I wonder if that was supposed to be like visual foreshadowing to this growing up too soon concept.
Maybe,
of
yeah.
Because they keep going up to the point where it's like now they're at adult level and out of frame. And then coming back down to like kid level.
Scooty discovers a lighter, and so that becomes his constant
And he specifies as the one with the naked girl on it.
Yeah, exactly. So they go to these condos that are abandoned and just a wreck, and they break in and they start imagining like, that's where my bed's gonna go, and that's where all my toys are gonna go.
And the most Agent of Chaos moment in the middle of it is when they peer through a hole in the wall and see Scooty in the other room with a metal pipe hitting on something, and they go, hey Scooty, what are you breaking? And he goes, the wall?
And they're like, all right, let's go.
And next thing you know, he's throwing it at a giant mirror.
Which
shatters. And they're just breaking shit and having the best of times. And I noticed a fun detail in there, again, kind of tying it into the Disney mythos. On the wall in one shot where they're like pushing shit down the stairs, on the wall is written in graffiti the word lamplight.
Oh my god, I forgot about
that. Which I think is a reference to Disney's Pinocchio, because that house and them smashing it up is their Pleasure Island.
Yeah.
And they suffer repercussions from it.
Wow.
Because they set a fire, which causes the whole thing to burn down. Now, none of them get hurt. They all run away from it. All the adults in the motel are what? Hey, the condos are burning down, because they don't have any other excitement in their life. And the kids are all like, nah, I'm fine, just watching TV, you know.
And immediately the adults know.
Then the mother tells her daughter
Right.
to stand in front of the fire. Here, I'll get a picture of it.
Yeah, and she just says,
She knows what she did.
The mother has no idea.
What I love about the fire is that the way it happens, where they see the fireplace, and she goes, "I have a great idea. Hey, get your lighter!" And it shows
Hey, I
her
got
lighting
here.
a pillow, like an old moldy pillow.
That doesn't even fit in the
And
fireplace.
you just watch it start to catch a little, and it's like underwhelming. And then it just cuts to them walking, going, "Okay, no, you go home. No one tell anyone. No one tell anyone." And you're like, "Oh God." Oh God! It's originally treated as a joke, but then there are genuine repercussions.
Yeah.
It's not like a gag. It is funny, and then it's serious. And I feel like the film does that very well.
Scooney's mother is so worried about, her being seen as an unfit mother because she let her kid, have a lighter and go burn this house down. She's so worried about being taken away from him, suddenly she's decided, okay, you can't see her anymore. So for the rest of the movie, like, these two little kids want to see each other, and their moms won't let them because they're angry at each other. These moms who were previously, like, BFFs, basically.
Yeah.
And they just, this petty, bullshit kind of just drives them apart. There's a scene where Haley, Mooney's mother, goes to the diner where, where Ashley works, and she just treats her like shit just because she's a customer, and the customer is always right. That's what I mean by her kind of almost being an irredeemable person who you kind of find likable anyway.
Don't do that, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't. Please, anyone who comes to Disneyland, please don't.
Unless it's him, of course. I mean,
I can take the punishment, but please don't.
He looks like this. He works on Star Tours. Just, do whatever you want. Have a free-for-all. Haley, in a lot of ways, kind of reminded me of my ex-wife.
Oh.
Just in the sense of how her friendship with Ashley dissolved. Like, that reminded me of a lot of friendships that my ex-wife had. Because my ex-wife had this habit of, making friends with people, and at first they were all chummy and hanging out all the time, and then literally, like, 2 months later, I would ask, hey, what happened to that girl you hung out with? Oh, I can't hang out with her anymore. And she would describe some perceived slight that, to my mind, would have been solved if they had just communicated or something, but they couldn't, and so, so they just never saw each other again. And she went through so many friends like that.
There's one point where Haley tries to apologize, but ends up beating the crap out of her.
Yeah.
Like, I thought she died from that.
Yeah, she got a black eye, but yeah, she flat out assaulted her. And
For like
that
a
was
good
just,
solid minute, just
I
bam.
did not know she could punch that hard. Like, that was...
And right in front of Ashley's son.
Yeah, like him.
It's the effectiveness of that shot was you didn't have to see his face. You saw the thing happen. But you didn't see the mother getting hit herself. You just saw Haley throwing the punches. And you see the kid's back of the head, and you don't see his facial reactions. You just see his hands go up to his mouth, almost like, oh my God.
Well, he doesn't know what he's looking at.
Yeah.
He's watching his best friend's mom beat up his mom, and he thought they were best friends, and what the hell is happening?
The creepiest thing about that scene for me is right as she's done, looks at him directly, just walks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some cold-blooded shit.
Okay, the ending.
Oh my God.
Let's talk about that ending.
That hit really hard.
The mom just takes Mooney to this really nice hotel for a breakfast. And she just kind of takes her in, like, nice and easy, in past the lobby and everyone, and straight into the cafe where it's a free buffet. It's all you eat. And
it's not free.
Well, not free.
Well, no, but it's free to guests
Free
of
to
the hotel.
guests.
The waitress just asks for a room number, and she says her room number at the Magic Castle.
She's technically not lying.
And I think deep down she knew, like, okay, there's these hotels that offer these free breakfasts, but I can only get away with this once, so I better make it count. She saves it for the last meal she's probably ever going to have with her daughter.
Can we talk about the camera work in that scene? Because when they're eating breakfast, there's this shot where they just lock the camera down on the table, and it's just a straight-on shot of the daughter coming in and out of frame as she drinks and eats stuff.
I like strawberries. I like bacon.
I'm gonna eat a strawberry and a raspberry at the same time. It's like, oh God, that was awful.
The cops and child services finally show up at the motel. We know you've been turning tricks to make rent. You're an unfit mother. We've got to take your child into custody and get her to a foster home.
Additionally, it's never explicitly stated, but there is the implication that because we're pretty sure the ex-friend is the one who called it in after she got assaulted, there's a good chance they know about the fire too.
So the daughter doesn't quite understand what's going on. And they tell her, you know, you're going to this place for just a little while, it's only temporary. Do you know what temporary means? And then she slowly starts to realize, wait a minute, I'm being separated from my mother. She runs away. And there's a really nice moment, because even Haley kind of, her last moment in the film is kind of, in her own way, a moment of triumph, in the sense that she gets to tell them off because, wait a minute, you lost my kid and I'm the one who's unfit? Fuck! Yeah! And it just does a close-up into her mouth as she says fuck you, and you see all the spittle and everything. It's great.
And it's immediately on the heels of this brilliant sequence where, as the daughter is realizing these adults are lying to me and is like pushing them away and starting to yell at them.
They're intercutting with Haley. It's getting more and more hectic.
They're intercutting with Haley, who at that moment stops being calm, because up until that moment she's been calmly packing a bag.
Almost passive-aggressively.
She's been cooperating.
And in that moment when they're
Do you remember what exactly pushed her over the edge?
They asked her to talk to her daughter and try to make it easier.
And you're trying to coax me into telling my kid to leave with you?
It's sympathetic because
that just adds,
also like, you're like, no!
That just adds insult to injury.
Like, you want me to be the bad guy.
I'm not happy about this. You can't make me be happy about this. You're treating me like it's my responsibility to help you. Fuck you. And that is what pushes her over the edge, and that is kind of understandable.
And seeing the juxtaposition of both of them screaming and getting more and more unruly with these authority figures is just, it's heart-wrenching.
It really is.
When the kid finally gets away and starts running, she runs to the other motel where Jancy is staying.
And she just breaks down and starts crying. It almost feels like the way adult actors would act in like an apocalyptic film.
Yeah.
Like where they're just panicking and they don't know why the world is ending.
She also doesn't start crying right away. At first she's just standing there in shock, and it's not until she tries to say goodbye. She's saying like, I don't know, this might be the last time I ever get to see you. And then she says, I can't say it.
Oh, and she also was like, you're my best friend.
Yes, you're my best friend. And for her to talk to this girl who we saw her meet less than 2 months ago and say, you are my best friend, it sort of calls everything into question in terms of, well, yeah, I guess she is.
I guess she is.
There is nothing constant in this girl's life.
She can't even get the words out. It's the hardest thing to watch.
We've never seen her cry until that point, despite the objectively sad situation she lives in, because she just isn't really aware of that. Mooney and Jancy lock arms and just run. And it cuts to various points along the way, and it's clearly shot on an iPhone.
I think it was a little bit in fast motion. It might have just been a different frame rate. It might have just been like a weird
I
frame rate or
noticed
something.
a different type of cinematography
But
there.
you see shots of, and now they're running, clearly between the theme parks. And now they're, like, you can tell they're
now they're running to the monorail station.
Exactly. Now they're running through Main Street. It ends with they run through the crowds of Main Street, and it ends with it panning up and a shot of the castle that domineers over the whole frame, and they run to the castle as the music crescendos.
But then they just stop. They stop and they just kind of look up at it, and then the movie just ends. Honestly, what it reminded me most of, and this is going to sound really egotistical, it reminded me a lot of the end of my Escape from Tomorrow review.
I thought it was your Escape from Tomorrow review meets the science of sleep. I was more impressed by the 30 seconds they shot in Disney World in this movie than by the 15 minutes they shot in Disney World in Escape from Tomorrow.
Well, they shot more than that.
Maybe it was 30 minutes. There was more meaning in those 30 seconds and more cinematic, like, filmmaking that occurred in those 30 seconds. Because it was all done purposefully and intentionally in order to convey something specific.
It was the only bit of the movie with non-diegetic music, because anything else you hear is
coming from the radio or something.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, you just feel this instant switch.
Actually, it's the second time you hear non-diegetic music, because at the beginning, over the opening credits, you hear Celebration by Kool and the Gang.
Yeah.
And then over over the Disney World scene, you hear an orchestral version of Celebration by Kool and the Gang. Yeah, listen to, if you watch it again, the orchestra's totally playing Celebration. And there's no music over the credits, which was kind of unsettling. You just kind of hear like this soft din of a crowd that kind of slowly gets a little bit louder, but not much.
But I think it was silent at the beginning, right?
Yeah, it was absolutely dead. So this ending happens, and then it cuts to credits with no music, and then there's literally like a 10-second pause where no one in the theater says anything, and then Nick, you just say, "Fuck."
I remember before that there was one guy. And just nothing.
He tried to clap and then like no one did. The beginning of the Running to Disney World sequence actually starts with Jancy grabbing her arm.
And
it's not Mooney who initiates this.
Yeah.
Jancy grabs her arm and pulls her along, and they start running.
Now the logistical question is, well, how did they get past the gate if they don't have, passes?
Yeah.
But
was it meant to be a fantasy?
Well, I think it was.
I'd love to hear an explanation.
I was about to say,
how do you get into Disney World for free? Yeah, you can read it as, just a fantasy or just symbolism of them running away from their problems in general, or you can see it as literal. It's up to the audience's interpretation.
The other layer to this is the reason they're not in Disney World, even though they're so close, is the economic reality of their lives.
Of course, yeah.
Part of that escape, I think, thematically is supposed to represent escaping the lifestyle, escaping the poverty, escaping
the prison.
Whether or not it's saying they will successfully escape this, or this is what they're trying to do.
Sean Baker gets why people love the Disney parks in a way that Randy Williams did not.
I kind of saw the ending as more of a fantasy, if only for like the score kicking in and the different cinematography, because it just felt like a switch from reality. Mm-hmm. So I took it more as the fantasy in that they were obviously running away from all the bad things and trying to get to this magical happy ending. Realistically, they'll probably never get there in their lives. And to me, it's both uplifting and heartbreaking, because it's like you want to think like they have a goal, and it's like they just want to be happy and get to Disney World and have good things, but at the same time, it's going to be so hard for them to achieve that.
And even if they do, it's not going to last. They have to leave eventually.
The whole film, we've been seeing fake Disney World. They're staying at the Magic Castle. There's, the future world or future land place that they stay at, or that they walk by.
There's the gift shop shaped like Gandalf.
Right. We see every brand of knockoff Disney, and they're living through the fake thing for the whole movie. The contrast the whole movie has been setting up, building to that one iconic moment when you see they finally made it to the real thing. Which, to me, thematically, that's their friendship on some level. It's like, who did she run to when she ran away? She ran to the girl who's her best friend. This running away to the real thing, to the actual happiness they've been living in the shadow of, that's how I choose to interpret it.
Hi, Tony here. I don't normally do this, but it's been a few days since we saw the movie and shot the vlog. I've been editing it, and I've been letting the ending rattle around in my head a bit more, and the more I think about it, the more I feel like we really didn't do it justice, just sitting in Luke's apartment saying stuff off the top of our heads, having just seen the movie. I don't think we really delved deep enough into what that ending really means, and particularly how it connects to how we view Disney World as a culture, which is the whole reason I'm covering this movie in the first place. And after mulling it over for a few days, I think I've cracked it. I think I understand a bit more what the director was going for. I could be wrong, but it's my interpretation, and I'd like to interject to share it, since I'm probably not going to do a formal review of this movie ever, since it doesn't have enough to do directly with theme parks, and it's really too good to make fun of anyway, so this might be my last chance to talk about it on camera. One thing that surprised me about the film is I thought it was going to deal a lot more overtly with class disparity, with the haves and have-nots, with tourists who are just there for Disney World and don't want to deal with these miserable peasants, and the miserable peasants themselves who enviously gaze up at the shining castle on a hill. And the movie does deal with that. It's certainly there. It's a theme in the film. It's just not the central theme. It kind of takes a back seat to Mooney's exploits, and she doesn't give a shit about Disney World. That's what surprised me. I went into this fully expecting multiple scenes where she's bitter and frustrated that they never get to go to Disney World, and they live in a town built to accommodate Disney World, and she never even gets to go there, but she never even brings it up because she doesn't need Disney World. She gets all the joy and fun and magic she wants out of life just by wandering through the swamp and looking at cows and climbing trees and burning down condos. That's her Disney World. Even the tagline on the movie's poster says, "Find your kingdom." So why at the end, after the shattering of innocence moment, after the things will never be the same moment, after she cries for the first time in the movie, why do they symbolically flee to the real Disney World and not their own self-made swampy Terabithia? Well, first of all, I think it was a symbolic trip to Disney World. Just realistically, the place is miles away, the cops are after them, they're running up the main road, they're not actually going to make it there. They're going to get apprehended by the cops, Mooney will get a slap on the wrist because she's so young, and she'll be taken into foster care. Now, I know nothing about the foster care system. Everything I know about it I learned from the movie Angels in the Outfield, so I could be very wrong about this, but I have to imagine foster care will give Mooney slightly more opportunities for a better life in the long run than just living in a shitball motel with her unemployed mother would have. Maybe she'll eventually get adopted by a nice, loving, middle-class family. They'll send her to a better school and buy her all the toys she wants and give her all the tools she needs to follow her dreams and all that good stuff, and they'll probably at least hook her up with a Disney World annual pass. But they'll also keep her on a much tighter leash. They won't just let her wander out into the swamplands all the livelong day. That part of her life will end, as it must. And she'll go to Disney World for her escapist adventures instead, and she'll lose that part of her imagination. Instead of being able to turn absolutely anything into her own magic kingdom, she'll just go to the same one as everyone else. And that, in its own way, is devastating, because the movie spends so much time investing in Mooney's disorganized, chaotic, nonsensical, magic little fantasy world that she'll never see again. Even Cinderella Castle in all its glory can't help but suffer by comparison. The movie posits Disney World as a metaphor for all our futile attempts to recapture our own innocence. It's a symbol for how we continually strive for the same childlike joy that we all once found so effortlessly. There's one scene early on where Mooney says to her friend, "I can always tell when grown-ups are about to cry." Society tends to stigmatize crying as something babies and small children do, but the movie sees exactly the opposite. The movie sees crying as something adults do, only after they've realized how thoroughly fucked up beyond repair their lives have become. Mooney doesn't shed a single tear until that very last scene, and once she does, as far as the film is concerned, her carefree childhood is over. It's all bullshit, of course, when you think about it. I mean, in the real world, kids cry all the time. You come out of the womb crying. And I think real kids would be bitter about getting shut out of a theme park they always see advertised everywhere. And I don't think such a harsh delineation between self-made fantasy and manufactured fantasy really holds up under harsh scrutiny. But none of those things are deal breakers. The movie certainly has rose-colored glasses about the nature of childhood, but complaining about that would be like complaining about Back to the Future just because time travel's impossible. What's important is whether or not it feels honest in the moment, and the Florida Project absolutely does. And not to keep beating this dead emu, but everything that caused Escape from Tomorrow to fail where this movie succeeds falls under that umbrella. You want to take time out of your movie to tell me the princesses are high-priced courtesans? Well, okay, but if you don't also take time to show me the inner lives of those courtesans and how they feel about their situation, then it's not going to register as anything beyond cheap shock value. Escape from Tomorrow used a bunch of bullshit gobbledygook to show how Disney World could be a living hell for frustrated middle-aged dipshits, and even if it had done that well, which it didn't, at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? The park's not meant for them. But to subtly and persuasively suggest that the homogeny of Disney World is quietly devastating for kids too, without them even knowing it? That's kind of a stroke of genius. Mooney runs to Disney World at the end because subconsciously, she knows she'll never be able to go home again. So she's settling for the next best thing. In a way, she's escaping to tomorrow.
Great Scott!
And now, it's time once again for What's the Attraction? So after this film wins a shitload of Oscars and Disney sues the filmmakers and eventually they settle by Disney buying the rights and they decide to build an attraction based on the Florida project, what will that attraction be?
In Epcot, they will add a new area, an offshoot of the America area, the ghetto shithole area, that they will name it something...
Disney's Florida Adventure.
Basically, except I think it'll have a less sympathetic name because if they were forced to buy it in a settlement, I think there'll be some level of unresolved anger towards it. Really, they should just build a motel based on this one.
Yeah.
And be like, yeah, stay here.
Enjoy your scabies.
Ian.
Well, I think they will build an all-new park in akin to Disney's Florida Adventure, but the only way you can get in is by scamming off of other people and hoping that you'll eventually get in there for like a quick 30 seconds and then you gotta leave.
Jared!
Well, I'm thinking, is there any other property they can combine it with that fits the tone? 2 words, Jessica Jones.
Ooh. Alright. Bree.
I say bring in the cows.
into Kilimanjaro safaris?
Sure, let's go with that.
There's your safari.
Just let the lions eat the cows
Yeah.
and then... What's the matter, kid? You never had steak chops?
The swerve is the cows.
Can't do that, Tony. The lions don't want to be fed. They want to hunt.
Can't just suppress 65 million
Give
years
the
of
cows
good
heroin.
instinct.
Lions are 65 million years old.
Oh, you didn't know that?
Oh, alright. Well, as usual, you're all wrong. What they're gonna do is buy out the city of Kissimmee and turn all the people into animatronics. And you'll be able to ride through Kissimmee Land where they'll go, hey, hi, and the animatronic of spitting on the car and of the pedophile who
And the topless chick who doesn't want to top on.
And instead of Willem Dafoe, it will be Gil, his character from Finding Nemo. So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, kids, I don't know what's wrong with these kids today. Doodly-doo-doo-doo, kids, they burn down condos and run away. Doodly-doo-doo-doo.
I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me, stand by me, just as long as you stand by me. Put your arm around me now. We're walking off together, side by side, into the sunset, just like on a picture postcard that you sent your aunt from somewhere down in the Florida Panhandle after coming from Disney World. So you'll be there and stand by me all the while. Yeah.